Dishonesty is something that's much more widespread and deep and has deeper negative consequences than I think anybody realizes. And one of the challenges of learning to see more of what God sees, feel more of what he feels, and know more of what he knows is adjusting to the realization that everybody struggles with this problem, and just how deeply most people do, and the effects that it has. Now, on the bright side of this, what ends up happening is that people that you might not have noticed before in life, the kinds of people that you might not notice, they end up shining like a diamond on velvet. And it turns out that to live without pretense, to know who you are, and to be accurate with that, to be spot on, not think too highly of yourself or too lowly of yourself, to be the same person inside as you are on the outside, and to come to know how God sees you and live that way, to live the full measure of your creation, to have an idea of your potential and live up to it. These are exceedingly unusual qualities to have. And if you have them, you become much more than a breath of fresh air to the people who can see it. Because as you come to see these things, basically every human interaction you have, it's nearly every human interaction you have, is like getting punched in the face. And worse than that, you get punched in the face by someone who will invariably be very upset with you if you react as if you got punched in the face. So you gain the ability to see the lies and see how broad dishonesty actually is, because it's not just about saying what you know is not true. It's much, much more than that. But because people are so self-deceived, they'll act very strange. They'll be indignant and offended and everything else if you call them out on that and say, "Yo, you just punched me in the face. What's up?" Let alone punch you back, right? So when you get the gift of knowing someone, because it's like, I don't know, it's like magic glasses where some people shine and most people don't. What it is that dishonesty, it impedes the Holy Ghost. And when you've lived your life in a way where you've intentionally identified and reduced those impedances in you, you become much more sensitive to the impedances outside of you, namely with other people, but also in your environment. You become sensitive to things, very sensitive. Not in a wussy kind of way, I mean in the literal sense of the word, where you have the ability to detect signal that others can't detect, and the levels of that signal are going to vary significantly from what other people experience. And so a friend of mine passed away this morning, Jim West, and I'm not sad that he's gone, because he's locked in a good life, and you can't ask for anything more than that. But I'm sad that he's gone because he's not here anymore, and the world was a better place to have at least one guy who was what he seemed, who didn't pretend to be more, and who was a genuinely kind person, not just a nice person. Because nice people, there's a Venn diagram there between nice and kind, and most nice people are fake. Very few people are nice and kind. Jim was both, but most of that was because he genuinely cared about people in general, not just specific people. And so last time I saw Jim, he came to a talk I gave, and he had been quite sick for some time. And truth be told, we weren't super close. The way my life goes, I have to focus it on the people that I can help. And Jim didn't need me for much, so but he was at this talk, and I was so happy to see him, because I thought I'd never see him again because he had been so sick, and here he was. So, you know, he gave me a huge hug. I told him how happy I was to see him, and he looked great at the time, but you know, I guess he was still struggling with some things physically. And now he's not here anymore. I hope the people who knew him in life don't have any regrets about how they spent their lives with him. That's something that tends to be very difficult when somebody dies. And funerals can be overtaken by this sense of regret. That's one reason I hate going to funerals. But it's always a good reminder when people that we knew and cared about, when they die, it's a great reminder to make the most out of every moment in life. And to just pick a specific thing that you're going to do now that you wouldn't have done before. Like call your mom, hug your kid, whatever it might be. And go do it. Whatever that is. We are so ignorant about the cascading effects little things can have. And that's one reason why every moment is so precious. Because we can't see how many times that's going to echo through the world. But it never stops. It's like this wind that I can't seem to get away from as I'm trying to make this video for like the 10th time. It keeps going. It doesn't stop. It just keeps going. And who knows where it's going to go, right? But we have the ability to emit these things. And you can make such a difference in the world while being a person that might not seem exceptional to every person. I try to say that very carefully, because Jim was the kind of guy that didn't steal the limelight. That wasn't what he was all about. That's one of the things that made him such an exceptional person, is that, to me, he reminds me of, if you drive from my house to, say, Sandpoint, somewhere northwest of here, there are these spots along the way where who knows how some apple tree got in this random crevice on the side of the road. And here it is. This is my most recent road trip. Here it is, this giant apple tree chock full of apples, when I've got a whole orchard that barely bore any fruit this year. The weather was really bad where I live. But here's this tree on the side of the road that's better than any of the trees in my orchard. And the people that know apples, you know, and like them, they'll pull over and eat all the apples. And that's how Jim West was. And what a beautiful thing to, if you could have a different set of eyes for a minute and scan the world and just see so many people who aren't living up to what God gave them. So many people. Every single place you look, you see it. And it just fills you with sadness all the time. It's seeing that. It's sadness inside of you, but it's not like the tip. It's because you're seeing people waste what God has given them. Then you see this gorgeous tree that has no right to be there and is on the side of the road in a crack, and it's got all these apples, and the apples are actually good. It's a wonderful thing. And so I think that it'd be nice if there were a lot more people like that. Honest people, deep down honest people who took the things that God gave them and made the most out of them and did a fine job. I'm going to miss him. And I hope that all of us can be a little bit more like him.